guess turning on the AC would be impossible.
You're okay.
This is a lovely room. This is one of the best for an interview. And it's the people's house, so we might as well use it.
We are on the 4th floor of the New York Times building.
Stupid is what stupid does, as Forrest Gump says, right?
Is this fake news?
This is not a complete dumper on him, right?
Check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3, check 1, 2, 3, 4.
I dare you to put this in the documentary.
I might give it a go.
Tension's beginning to run high.
Run the tape back. We're getting started.
You tell me when you're ready, I'm always ready.
Well, like most people, I didn't take it seriously.
When the entire country was laughing at him. They were mocking him.
Donald Trump has been saying that he will run for president as a Republican, which is surprising since I just assumed he was running as a joke.
There was just no serious thought given to him as a candidate.
It's obvious that the Republicans think Trump's going to lose.
Well, I can imagine it in a Saturday night skit.
Utterly unqualified.
He's an embarrassment to this country.
Hillary belongs in the White House. Trump belongs on my show.
Right now, we have Hillary's about a 75 or an 80% favorite. We have different versions of the forecast.
You're not going to be president, all right?
So discombobulated, so unconventional.
This is a joke, and it's an absurdity.
Donald Trump will never be elected president of the United States.
I don't think there's any way that Donald Trump gets elected president of the United States.
Donald Trump is not going to be president of the United States.
You know, you guys sound like two kittens sitting on a train track, looking down at a train. So, you know, that train got a little bit bigger a few seconds ago, but I'm sure it's gonna stop. Hey, it got a little bit bigger, but no way it's gonna keep going. Hey, let's get a splat. Listen, if something is getting bigger and bigger and bigger every day, it's probably going to continue doing that.
The 2015 U.S. was really a space of more than one America.
Breaking news coming in now from Charleston, South Carolina, where there are reports that 8 people have been killed in a shooting at a church.
We as a country will have to reckon with the fact that this type of mass violence does not happen in other advanced countries.
There was this growing gap between rich and poor Americans, and it was really one of the major challenges facing the country.
Sometimes I just don't buy groceries every month, and I live like eating a meal a day.
We automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and those communities have never recovered.
Today, we can say, in no uncertain terms, we've made our union a little more perfect.
Orlando became the tragic scene of the worst mass shooting in American history.
country, 340 million people, all Americans, but pretty distinct cultures regionally and drastically different political sensibilities. So you had people who were pleased with the performance of President Obama.
That was a winning campaign. You just felt millions of people at these rallies, every age, every race. You felt the swell of excitement about this historic candidacy.
It was a creed written into the founding documents that declared the destiny of a nation. Yes, we can.
There was just incredible enthusiasm for Obama, enthusiasm very rarely seen for a politician. He offered a message of hope and change that electrified the Democratic base, and they turned out in big numbers for him.
And CNN can now project that Barack Obama, 47 years old, will become the president-elect of the United States.
Walking down the streets, people were just screaming, Obama!
What Republican voters believed, to their core, was that Barack Obama had succeeded, that he had set out to change America, and he did, and he wrecked it.
You had a few different contingents that were starting to maybe look for a way to coalesce around something to replace President Obama, knowing that he'd be leaving.
I think liberals and conservatives were both looking for someone who would go to political war for the issues that we care about. Obama pushed this country way to the left. Are you gonna keep that ground? Or are you gonna cede that ground? And to just elect somebody who was gonna come in and be kind of a caretaker of the status quo, no way. Nobody wanted that.
Hello, Iowa! I'm back!
Well, what Democrats believed as gospel was that Barack Obama had permanently changed the composition of the electorate. This ascendant coalition of African Americans, of Latinos, of women, of millennials was going to turn out in the same levels that it had for President Obama's two successful elections.
The Democratic Party was like, you know what we should do? Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton. She is running for
president.
This was like the reintroduction of Hillary Clinton. Most people had already formed an opinion about her, and that's hard to change.
There had never been a candidate in the history of the United States who had been as famous for as long as she had been.
She's always prepared, she always does her homework, and she works very, very hard not to make a story of herself.
Has had 25 years to figure out how to do this perfectly. All the money in the world, all the smartest people around her, and it was inevitable. There was no way that she would ever be denied the idea that she'd be the president of the United States.
Those segments were all convinced that Hillary Clinton was the next president. I don't mean like 90 to 10 or 85 to 15, every one of them.
It was all math and no poetry. You know, it was all about kind of identifying Obama voters, building this Hillary coalition. And I thought, well, maybe this is just how Hillary wins. You know, it's sort of a dreary mechanical slog.
And that kind of canned political candidate, overmanaged by consultants, over-workshopped by a giant committee of people, that's what people are tired of. People are tired of being sold a polished product. They want something that feels like a real person, even if that real person is all kinds of weird.
I don't believe he intended to become president when he declared his candidacy.
When he came down the escalator, I did not think he was a serious candidate. I thought it was all for publicity purposes.
This was a marketing exercise. This was a YOLO campaign. Even if he lost, he'd win, because he'd raise his profile even higher.
I think his expectation was that I'll do well and do better than people initially thought I would, which was a smart bet, and I'll increase my brand share, my market share.
I think he intended to provoke a conversation about Donald Trump.
Wow. Whoa. That is some group of people, thousands.
I think he was contemplating turning 70 and thought, how do I want to go out? Well, I want to go out in a blaze of attention. And what better vehicle for getting attention than a presidential campaign?
I am officially running for President of the United States, and we are going to make our country great again.
This is something that's been in the back of Trump's mind for a long time.
Could the Manhattan magnate be eyeing the White House, or is he just calling a bluff?
As early as 2000, he floated the idea publicly of running for president.
I think that nobody's really hitting it right. The Democrats are too far left, the Republicans are too far right.
He was thinking about it in the 1990s.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me.
I do get tired of seeing what's happening with this country, and if it got so bad, I would never want to rule it out totally.
He talked about running on the Reform Party ticket.
You have a vice presidential candidate in mind?
Well, I really haven't gotten quite there yet.
He came very, very close to running in 2012, and people, I think, have slightly forgotten that. He was front runner at one stage in the polls.
Are you or are you not going to run for the presidency?
I am seriously thinking about it. Well, I am thinking about it, Bob. We'll see what happens.
And ended up endorsing Mitt Romney and making a big show of it in Las Vegas. He was always someone who, I think, as part of his showmanship, felt that he deserved to be on the biggest stage in the world.
The country is doing very poorly. Our country is in serious, serious trouble. The country is going to hell in a handbasket. This country cannot continue to support Japan and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. You look at what China's doing to us, how they're just ripping us left and right. They're taking our jobs.
I'll bring back our jobs from China, from Mexico, from Japan, from so many places. I'll bring back our jobs and I'll bring back our money.
I really believe that this was a gimmick to get NBC to raise up his salary and to keep The Apprentice on.
Well...
And I would bet the farm on that.
Some say Donald Trump entered the race to win it, and the other half say he entered to see where it took him.
He absolutely, and I talked to him before he ran and talked to him throughout the race, he absolutely ran to win it. And he also said, we'll see how it goes. The usual political motivators that attend to people running for president did not apply to Donald Trump. Money, fame, position, bankability, power. He had all that. He had a great life in New York City. He's Donald Trump.
Think about the opening of The Apprentice. It's Donald Trump in a helicopter narrating the scene as he approaches the island of Manhattan and talks about what a big deal he is.
New money, boorishness, is quintessentially American. From the gold rush, this idea of striking it rich and celebrating it. There's no restraint. Trump lives like a rap star.
He is a master marketer who had a celebrity resonance with the American people as a successful businessman and a strong leader.
This establishes for America that Donald Trump really is the mogul he claims to be. Now, I say claims to be because he isn't the mogul he claims to be. He's not nearly as rich as he says he is, but it doesn't matter. This is a thing that he intuits, but he also knows. He knows that the truth is really beside the point. It's what are you selling, and can you sell it, and will people buy it? In every case, he was selling himself, and that is the best preparation possible for a politician.
If you're a kind of narcissist where as long as your name's being mentioned, it really doesn't matter if it's good or bad. If that's good for your marketing campaign and building a larger brand.
3 weeks ago when I started, I thought he was probably born in this country, and now I really have a much bigger doubt than I did before.
But based on what?
And you know what? His grandmother in Kenya said he was born in Kenya, and she was there and witnessed the birth, okay?
I think he clearly saw how the criticism of Obama got him traction as red meat for the Republican base.
And I just say very simply, why doesn't he show his birth certificate? Perhaps it's going to say Hawaii. Perhaps it's going to say Kenya.
Are you a birther, Donald?
Something on that birth certificate that he doesn't like.
Oh my God,
that's a terrible thing. If you really don't like what President Obama did, there certainly can be sort of an underlying racial resentment. The idea that his presence was disproportionately good for non-white people, and thus your status as a white person may be endangered or in jeopardy.
He tapped into that group. Yeah, there are more things, but race was a major issue. People say it's not, but it was. He started chanting, and the rhetoric was shrill about race.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Remember, after Mitt Romney lost in 2012, most of the Republican establishment thought it was because he alienated Hispanic voters with self-deportation. Kellyanne was one of a very small group of Republican professionals who thought it was actually the opposite, who thought that you could take a populist message against immigration, not more liberal, but more conservative on immigration, and you could get not just Republican primary voters, but a lot of blue-collar, white working-class voters, particularly in the Rust Belt, the upper Midwest.
I will build a great, great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall. Mark my words.
Are you concerned about alienating the Hispanic vote by saying that Mexico is not our friend and we're building a wall?
If it's good for me or bad for me, I don't think of that. I think of saying the right thing. And people have to be alerted to the fact that we are getting some really bad characters coming into this country.
How can you succeed when you say things like that?
Well, you can't, again, Gail, if the question is how can you become president, you can't by saying things like that. Are you racist?
I am the least racist person that you have ever met.
He was fearless. When Donald Trump denounces Mexicans and people are outraged and he loses the PGA championship from the golf course, does he back down? No. He doubles down.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
It is in fact the case that you have a big chunk of racists in this country, but worse than that, you have a big chunk of people for whom racism is not a disqualifier. And Trump understood that.
Build that wall, 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 build that wall.
He realized this wasn't about ideology. It was about who was the angriest. It was about who was the angriest at Obama specifically and who could embody that anger the most authentically. And so it didn't matter that he wasn't a conventional conservative on all kinds of metrics. What the base was really looking for was just who could be the most opposed to Barack Obama.
Were it not for the transformative love of Jesus Christ.
What makes our country exceptional? Faith and freedom.
It's no exaggeration to say we're at the most critical point in our nation's history.
The greatest nation the world has ever known.
I see a great country on the verge of its greatest century.
The new American century. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the United States.
Donald Trump was blessed with the biggest field in modern Republican history.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that the Trump campaign was delighted by the fact that there were so many other candidates.
This was possibly the most qualified group of Republican candidates in history.
Every single one of them who ran thought there was at least some chance that they could, get lightning in a bottle and win this thing.
Ted Cruz is my man. He fits the bill.
They thought that you go out, you get your base, you're gonna fight this out in the States. Jeb Bush is going to get X constituency, Rubio's going to get this constituency, and so forth and so on.
They were prepared and responsible and ready to lead. They were not prepared to play the lowest common denominator every day to maximize attention.
So along comes Donald Trump. And what Donald Trump understood is that
Republicans were not looking for the smartest candidate or the most sophisticated candidate. They were looking for a gut puncher, a street fighter.
Rubio, total lightweight, and little mouth on him, bing, bing, bing.
A con artist will never get control of this party.
Jeb Bush is a low-energy person.
I think Donald Trump is trying to insult his way to the presidency, and it's not going to work.
Do you believe Senator Ted Cruz is a natural-born citizen?
I don't know, to be honest.
Donald Trump alleges that my dad was involved in assassinating JFK.
And he's like this, and we will, I need water, help me, I need water.
This man is a pathological liar.
And he knew that all he had to do was seem different from the typical Republican, and he would naturally draw the public's interest.
Unbelievable.
Trump's latest poll numbers matching his larger-than-life personality. In a reversal from when he entered the race, Republicans increasingly believe Trump has staying power. But the question remains, can Trump turn his poll numbers into actual votes?
Because his name ID was so high, because he was such a spectacle from day one, that in a giant field, his name bumped to the top of polling, and then it sort of feeds off of itself. Because once he's the leader, oh, maybe I'm for the leader too. Yeah, sure, that sounds interesting. Donald Trump.
In reality television, the villain is always the star. All the way back to American Idol, Simon, he was like rude and mean. He's the star. That's a trope in reality TV.
Who would you rather have negotiate with Iran, Trump or Jeb? But here's the problem with Rubio. When you sweat that much, hello, can I have some water? And Putin's sitting there, what the hell kind of stuff is this? This is not exactly a poker player, folks. Not exactly a poker player. She said, I never expect to hear that from you again. She said he's a pussy. That's terrible. Terrible.
He had this reality TV experience, which I contend people watch for the humor. Like, it's not jokes, but they just sort of laugh at what's happening. I think that with Trump's, candidacy, that the news became comedy.
This is a TV star who knew how to work the medium of television. And because most of the Republican candidates were cowed into thinking they shouldn't expose themselves too much, Trump soaked up all the airtime.
Why don't you turn your camera? Show them how many people come to these rallies. Turn them. Go ahead, turn them. Go ahead. Brutal.
The media elite thought that Donald Trump had climbed over the wall from the world of entertainment into the world of politics. That's not what he did. He pulled the world of politics over the wall into the world of entertainment.
I'm Mike Huckabee. I'm delighted to be on this stage.
I'm Jeb Bush, and I believe America is on the verge of its greatest century.
I'm Ted Cruz. I'm the son of an Irish-Italian mom.
My wife, Jeanette, and I are the proud parent. We've been married 17 years, and we're the proud parents of 4 children.
I'm Donald Trump. I wrote The Art of the Deal. I say not in a braggadocious way. I've made billions and billions of dollars dealing with people all over the world.
The thing that makes Trump the most unique is not any one element of his personality, his skill set, his history. It's the lethal combination of them. I've referred to this as a talent stack, or in this specific case, you could call it a persuasion stack. It's a bunch of skills that if you put them together, you would say each of these individual skills is not the best I've ever seen, but almost nobody has this combination.
Donald Trump took center stage in that first debate in early August 2015 and never lost center stage.
Positioned on the stage by how they stand in the polls. In the center of the stage tonight, businessman Donald Trump.
When Donald Trump raised his hand and said that I might not support the nominee,
Can I see hands?
who is unwilling tonight to pledge your support to the eventual nominee of the Republican Party. Mr. Trump.
People aren't watching these primary debates to really learn about the candidate. It's a show. It's a TV show.
Mr. Trump.
He was in a situation with Megyn Kelly that I don't think anybody could have escaped from if they were a standard politician with a standard approach.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
The Trump method is not to deny everything. It's to own a little piece of the terrible thing.
Everyone on stage with him that night got the memo too late that we were playing a different game.
You had serious policy debates in 1960. 56 short years later, you don't have serious policy debates anymore because the phone changed everything, right? Because what happened is the phone shortened up everybody's attention span. Trump understood that I'm in this and I'm out of this thing in 30 seconds. That's going to show up on everybody's media page. That's going to show up on sound bites in the news. And I'm going to be the guy controlling the narrative. They're not.
We don't need a weak person being president of the United States, okay? We don't need that. We don't need that.
Nasty guy. Now I know why he doesn't have one endorsement from any of his colleagues.
All right, John, I get to respond. Pick from the buffet.
Rand Paul shouldn't even be on this stage. He's number 11. He's got 1% in the polls.
So you're not beating Hillary.
Well, then if I can't beat her, you're really going to get killed, aren't you? So let me ask you this, because you're really getting beaten badly. I know you're embarrassed. I know you're embarrassed, but keep fighting, keep swinging, man. Swing for the fences. Let me just tell you.
I mean, they were all ready for each other, but they weren't ready for him. Okay, he was like the human wrecking ball. He was the Howard Stern of presidential candidates. He was the first smash-mouth, shock-jock candidate. So he came in there with his tongue. He used them as boxing fists. He was just boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. And he was knocking them left and right, and they couldn't handle it.
That's all of his donors and special interests out there. So, 2 days ago, he said he would take his pants off and moon everybody, and that's fine. Nobody reports that. He gets up and says that to Jeb's crowd, as you know, right down the street. They're sleeping. They're sleeping now.
There's a lot of technique in the linguistic kill shot, as I call it.
He's very low energy. I'm not used to that kind of a person.
If you looked at Jeb Bush before the nickname, you probably thought what I did, which was, hey, this Jeb Bush guy looks like a real cool, calm, even-headed leader. But the moment that Trump said he was low energy, you couldn't unsee it.
Please clap.
Didn't want to,
Donald, you cannot take
more energy tonight. I like that. And then he got to lying Ted. Well, look at him. He looks shifty.
And he cleverly made it lion with an apostrophe, not a G.
L-Y-I-N apostrophe, Lion Ted.
And by the time he did Little Marco,
Little Marco.
I knew this stuff works.
It was the idea that Trump was assigning people names. That conveys a sort of authority.
Don't worry about it, Little Marco, I will.
All right, well, let's hear Big Don.
Don't worry about it, Don't worry about it, Little Marco.
Gentlemen.
Sometimes the only way to deal with the bully is to knock him on his ass.
He's always calling me Little Marco. And I'll admit, the guy, he's taller than me. He's like 6'2", which is why I don't understand why his hands are the size of someone who's 5'2". Have you seen his hands? They're like this. And you know what they say about men with small hands?
Everyone criticizes Rubio for going dirty on Trump, right? Oh, he messed up his brand, and that was never his brand.
It was exactly that. It was cringeworthy.
He hit my hands. Nobody has ever hit my hands. I've never heard of this one. Look at those hands. Are they small hands? And he referred to my hands. If they're small, something else must be small. I guarantee you there's no problem. I guarantee it.
You have young children. Do you regret where this has gone?
Look, I regret the way the campaign has become, absolutely, because Donald Trump for the last year has made it one of the most vulgar spectacles in American political history. Trump ran through the Republican field like a buzzsaw.
The Bush dynasty is done. There were Republicans, who were rising stars, whether you're talking about a Chris Christie or Marco Rubio, Rick Perry, who are done in American life. And then it got to the Democrats.
Part of Hillary's whole strategy in the primaries was to elevate Trump, to make sure that the media took him seriously.
Now some transformation has happened, and Republicans, whether they support Donald Trump or not, seem to think that he really is their best chance of winning the general election next November.
And which Republican candidate has the best chance of winning the general election?
Of the declared ones, right now, Donald Trump.
There was a feeling of like the Clinton campaign felt like this is great. He'll destroy the Republican Party and it'll make it impossible for a Republican to win.
Donald Trump's continued ascent in the Republican Party could mean the end of the Republican Party as we know it, that George W. Bush could be the last elected Republican president.
The RNC apparatus eventually panicked at the idea of Donald Trump being the nominee, and they started to be more aggressive behind the scenes to try to derail it.
If we Republicans choose Donald Trump as our nominee, the prospects for a safe and prosperous future are greatly diminished.
You can see how loyal he is. He was begging for my endorsement. I could have said, Mitt, drop to your knees. He would have dropped to his knees. He was begging.
We've confirmed that both presidents, George W. Bush and his father, George H.W. Bush, will stay silent and not endorse anyone.
He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party.
They wanted him to write checks. They viewed him as a donor. They did not view him as a serious candidate. They viewed him as a threat to everything that the RNC had been working for. And what the RNC didn't realize is that the American people could really have cared less what their point of view was.
CNN projects that Donald Trump will be the winner of the New Hampshire Republican primary.
Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow.
Donald Trump is the winner of the Nevada caucuses.
We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
A 22-point margin in Alabama, 14-point victories in Tennessee and Georgia.
Very big nights for Donald Trump.
They got destroyed. Donald Trump, all 5 states called relatively early in the night.
People thought that conservative values voters were going to care more about personal morality than political and policy alignment. And at the end of the day, it turns out they don't care that much about personal morality for their leaders.
He exposes the fact that it's not about ideas, it's about emotions. This is not about actually ideology. It's, he talks like me, he thinks like me. In some cases, he hates like me.
They felt like the two major parties had failed the country in the most fundamental ways, and they simply weren't listening. And they wanted to find the person who could personify their anguish about the country's future.
Well, look, nobody saw Bernie Sanders coming, least of all the Hillary Clinton campaign, and even Bernie Sanders himself was surprised by how much traction he got.
What this campaign is about is creating a political revolution in America.
CNN projects that Bernie Sanders will win the Wisconsin Democratic presidential primary, beating Hillary Clinton. A big, big win for Bernie Sanders. He won 5 of the last 6 states.
We've now won, 9 states, and a lot more are yet to come.
I think Bernie Sanders was, it said a lot about weaknesses in her candidacy that he gave her such a hard run.
Her campaign refused to take seriously that there had been an insurgency in her party and a 149-year-old socialist from Vermont who nobody ever heard of got 47% of the vote against her. She went to Michigan and got beat to a bloody pulp by Bernie Sanders. That lets you know that there's a problem for you in the industrial heartland.
The fact that he was able to pull off that incredible upset showed people that there is still a very
vocal constituency in the Democratic base.
What we see is a populism rising, but a populism that is formed by a lack of economic gain and movement in the middle of the economy.
A very large swath of the country has felt left out by the economic miracle that's taken place over the last 30 years. In the process of globalization, there's been rising living standards all over the world, but the American middle class and the American lower middle class missed out on this.
In the United States of America today, there is massive injustice in terms of income and wealth inequality.
When you have no real wage growth, when 67% doesn't have $1,000 in savings, when all of the economic gains accrue at the top, that will ultimately destabilize politics.
Remember, 76% of Americans do not have a four-year college degree. More than 2/3 of Americans have never been to college at all. So what you're excluding is the vast majority of the country from the possibility of moving into the ranks of the upper middle class.
Those people were angry.
Things he's saying, I've been saying for years. When he wins, we all win.
He tapped into a vein of the American mindset that believed that the American dream was aspirational but no longer achievable.
I'm tired of the politicians in Washington. I'm tired of the way the country's being run, and I want some change. I want somebody new, and the man knows what he's doing.
If you want a candidate who's going to help create a government which works for all of us and not just the 1%.
The jobs, incomes, and security of the American worker will always be my first priority.
When this guy is saying, I'm not going to ship your jobs overseas, I'm not going to trade with people who will undermine our economy, I'm not going to let people into the country who will jeopardize your security, that's what they're looking for.
I am going to be the greatest jobs president that God ever created. Remember that.
I think a lot of people go, oh my gosh, look at this Trump, he's upending everything, and this is some disease that just popped out of nowhere in the American polity. And it's like, no, he's actually a symptom of the fact that many people have felt alienated for a long time, have felt disappointed in their vehicles for reaching Congress, in this entire sort of system.
Our system is rigged. The system is corrupt. The system is broken.
They were waiting for someone who just would grab the people of Washington, the leeches and the lawyers and the lobbyists and all of them, just grab them by the neck and say, get the fuck out.
We are going to drain the swamp. It is time to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C. We're draining the swamp.
Some people have told us that Trump voters were dumb and that he manipulated them.
It is a mistake to say that, or to believe that people who voted for Donald Trump are stupid, just like it's a mistake to say that they're sexist or racist or xenophobic. It is fair to say, though, that they were duped. Because if you're looking for a champion, if you've been squeezed as a member of the middle class from a Rust Belt city, a billionaire populist who lives on Fifth Avenue is not going to be your savior. Now, to Donald Trump's credit, he was able to connect with them.
And I'll tell you what, the big business in this country, and I'm a part of it, but I decided, I've been on the other side. You do know that, right? I understand the other side.
And in some way, it's possible that because he owned being the rich guy who was going to help everybody do better, it, in a way, circumvented the criticisms that he's just some rich guy.
Large numbers of Americans have thought for a very long period of time that if we could only get a businessman in there, someone who understood business, we could make the government run like a business. Which is kind of a funny point of view when you think of all of the senators and governors who were businessmen who were elected and generally have been a disaster as politicians.
He was out there giving
helicopter rides to children, spending tons of money, showing anything but humble beginnings. But that's who his persona was, and that made him seem authentic.
So he wore a suit where other people don't wear suits. He stayed looking presidential in every situation.
Mr. Trump now has security equal to the President of the United States.
We commonly refer to our activity as the show. And the reason being is because it was a show. If you think about the optics, the black vehicles, the limousines, the agents that jump out with sunglasses and earpieces, there's a sense of importance and gravitas that comes with the show. And Donald Trump had that almost 1 year in advance of the election.
And he made sure that when he landed his plane that looked a lot like Air Force One, that there would be plenty of camera time for that.
The American people would have been disappointed if he had appeared at any airport in any other jet. The black and gold and red Trump color scheme and the giant block letters of gold Trump are things that people respond to now emotionally. It's not just that they're amused and riveted by it, they like it.
They admire Donald Trump the same way they once admired Elvis. They see a man who's living large, who's enjoying life, who's doing what they would probably do if they were worth billions of dollars.
Trump is the guy that like the working class man would be if he won the lottery. There's something about Trump's wealth, the gold platedness, the eating a bucket of KFC on his airplane.
He's one powerful person who's going to stand up and stand between the regular folks and the elite and say, I'm with them.
He has money. He's supporting this campaign from his own money. He believes in this.
I'm here for Donald Trump because he loves America and he loves Texans.
And veterans. We need jobs and we need more jobs. I mean, it's getting bad, but it's going to get better because he's going to be our president.
He wants to eliminate some of the corruption that's in the government, and there's a lot of corruption in this government at the present time.
If you were afraid that your child was being indoctrinated in high school or college, Trump had a message for you. If you were angry about the cultural signals that Hollywood was sending, he had a message for you. And if you were resentful that the media wasn't telling the whole story, boy, did he have a message for you. And it became Trump versus this cultural elite.
If you look at a Trump rally, you see the joyful faces, people laughing, people having fun.
He was electrifying audiences of 10 to 20 to 30,000 people.
I would go early to the events. They would be lined up around the block, into the second block, into the third block. Never seen anything like it.
They would show up in labyrinth, snake-like lines to go to a rally just to say they were there when he was there and be part of his movement.
Start to draw 10,000 people, 15, 20,000, in Trump's case, 30,000 people, and they're all cheering your name, and you're Donald Trump, it's better than OxyContin. I mean, it is the most addictive thing in life, even more than private jets. Just...
Donald Trump is very, very hard to understand if you come at him through the lens of an educated person. I went to a number of his rallies in New Hampshire and in South Carolina, and I would listen to Trump's speeches, and it seemed to me as if he was changing thoughts in the middle of a sentence, not just in the middle of a paragraph. There were so many unfinished thoughts and so many imprecise wordings. I thought, my gosh, what is this guy even talking about?
Did you read about Starbucks? No more Merry Christmas on Starbucks. Then you say, sorry, we're leaving. You go out, you double up the sanctions. By the time your plane lands at one of our decrepit airports, they're all decrepit.
This was said to me by one of the great musical geniuses. I won't tell you his name. I don't want to get in trouble. But he said, Donald, you're the greatest in the world. You're the only one that can fill an arena without a guitar, meaning without music. I don't want Oreos made in Mexico. Right?
It's baffling to me why people would say that that Trump gets anyone in the Rust Belt, any middle-class person. Not only, yes, does he literally live in a gold tower in New York City, in a mansion in Beverly Hills, on a golf course in Florida. I never saw a speech of Donald Trump's where he addressed the needs of the working class. I never saw a single speech of Donald Trump's where he talked about anything but himself and his enemies.
And yet when I talked to the people in the crowd, I found that he was resonating with them.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
You can mock it. You can say you don't agree with it. You can say it wasn't sophisticated enough, but you can't say he didn't have it. He knew exactly what he wanted to tell people.
People came to the rallies because they had no idea what he was going to say. They had no ideas whether there were going to be fights. You didn't know.
Has campaign violence gone viral? Those are the big questions this week after the ugliest 2 days of a dangerously angry White House race.
Oh, we have a protester. We have a protest. I love the old days. You know what they used to do to guys like that when they were in a place like this? They'd be carried out on a stretcher, folks. That's true. Get him out of here. Get him out. Out, out, out. Bye. Go home to mommy.
Do you regret saying any of those things about punching protesters, sending them out on stretchers?
No, I don't regret it at all.
Is there anything more fun than a Trump rally?
The ancient Romans said that the electorate was motivated by bread and circuses. So the idea that giving people a show is not unique to 21st century America or 21st century world. But Trump is good at it. He's good at provoking people. He's good at getting a rise out of people in whatever medium.
ISIS is honoring President Obama. He is the founder of ISIS. He's the founder of ISIS.
Trump has launched a new line of attacks trying to link the Obama administration to the founding of ISIS.
Founding ISIS would be, that's treason.
I know what you meant. You meant that he created the vacuum, he lost the peace.
No, I meant he's the founder of ISIS. He was the founder of ISIS, absolutely.
Every night I have to sit on set, cable news, and listen to people explaining how Trump is moments away from self-destructing. How the most recent thing he's done is so terrible that he'll never survive it.
And I think what Trump understood better than really anybody is the truth of being in the media. There's not a liberal or conservative bias as much as there's a conflict bias. And Donald Trump provided daily conflict.
You got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
That reporter he is talking about is Serge Kovaleski, who now works for the New York Times.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah.
Have you even read the United States Constitution?
If you look at his wife, she was standing there. She had nothing to say. Maybe she wasn't allowed to have anything to say. You tell me.
That's a famous Mussolini quote. You retweeted it. You like the quote? Did you know it was Mussolini?
It's okay to know it's Mussolini. Look, Mussolini was Mussolini. I'm going to bomb the shit out of him. It's true. I don't care. They give us the most dishonest reporting. And that's the way it is, folks. That's the way it is. And we just get used to it.
Whenever Trump would appear on television, the ratings would go up.
Man, who would have expected the ride we're all having right now? It may not be good for America, but it's damn good for CBS. That's all I got to say.
So they had this endless appetite for Trump because they had endless appetite for ratings.
Trump's so racist!
Yeah, it's symbiotic, right? And everyone should admit that this is a symbiotic relationship, that he rates, we cover him because he rates. You could just put a camera on him and guarantee that it was going to be entertaining in some way.
Because he's a controlled car crash.
And once in a while, I hit the guardrail doing 75 miles an hour, and sparks will come off the car, and you're like, okay, where's this thing gonna go? I gotta watch this thing.
At first, he would do an interview with anybody. He was calling into TV stations and radio stations left and right.
I'm joined now on the phone from New York by Donald Trump.
On the phone, Donald Trump.
Donald Trump on the phone.
We have a phone call from somebody.
Good morning, darling.
Nobody ever seen that before. Usually you have walls and walls of media handlers between a candidate and the media system. What's on the Facebook page, what's on the Twitter page, who's he talking to when. Trump just kept accelerating his share of the media market.
It was Trump's celebrity and the expectation that he would say something outrageous.
It may be, again, I don't have the data, but I'm just gonna make a guess, that Donald Trump was the most televised candidate in the history of candidates.
He's someone that commands media attention and television oxygen. And actually what happened is everyone in the liberal media, in particular, continued to underestimate him.
I think there is a large segment of the population in the United States that wants to blame somebody, and the media becomes an easy target.
But I do think that there were things done for him, like photos of the empty podium waiting for the presser because it was guaranteed conflict, good TV.
Frontrunner Donald Trump expected to speak at a campaign rally.
So we're just expecting him.
We're waiting his remarks.
Still waiting for that Donald Trump any minute now.
All the news coverage just got sucked up and focused on him because he continued to be the most interesting story. You can't even remember what the other candidates were about.
But the media is not the one that told all of his competitors not to do interviews. They were running an old game and an old playbook. Trump, to his credit, understood that new media world, and he took advantage of it. There's no question about it.
That led to just an unconscionable amount of free media coverage that we could sort of quantify in dollars. It would be a really, really high number.
You know, people say that he got $1 billion in free media in the primary, but a lot of that was negative. A lot of that would have been considered not a campaign ad for his campaign, but for his opponents.
I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But, you know, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that, because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me.
You hear me say, but he's a war hero. I couldn't believe it. He's a war hero, and I said it like that.
He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
And I thought to myself at that moment, the gentleman who is sitting across from you is in the process of lighting himself on fire.
Oh, that was my first moment where I naively was like, well, this guy's done.
Supposedly, that's something that the right does not tolerate. You cannot go after members of the military.
You know, I'm just speechless because I just can't believe such reckless words out of a person's mouth.
He did 10 things from the announcement through the first vote in Iowa, 10 things that would have killed any other candidate. And each time, he just got stronger.
This is going to be a nightmare of a campaign if he insists on being so uncivil and so disrespectful, but you better get ready for it.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
You're encouraged to be modest, to be humble, not to show off, not to be brash, not to say provocative things, to be very careful, to tiptoe around the niceties of language. Trump just ignored all the playbook. Trump just went, no, actually, I'm gonna be me. For better or for worse, I'm gonna be authentic.
And that was tremendously attractive to an audience, and I think a country that is perhaps rightly tired of politicians who seem bound by what they considered political correctness in not saying those things.
What happens with Trump is that he uses the same method over and over again until it fails. And in the primaries, he discovered that it didn't fail.
An outsider who read the mood of Republican voters better than anyone now controls a party that fought him every step of the way. This evening, his last opponent dropped out, ensuring that Donald Trump will be the party's first nominee since Eisenhower to run with no political experience.
I saw an organization that was the most pathetic of anything I've ever seen in American politics. His polling operation was weak. His grassroots was almost non-existent. They refused to spend money for advertising. All the elements of what you spend or invest in a campaign were not happening.
We hit the 1237, right? 1237.
Trump celebrated the victory tonight with McDonald's.
Here I am watching Hillary fight, and she can't close the deal. And that should be such an easy deal to close. It could be we're going to run against Crazy Bernie. That could be. Could be Crazy Bernie. He's a crazy man, but that's okay. We like crazy people.
Certainly great politicians master a new medium, right? So FDR was the king of radio. JFK used TV. Obama used the internet and nascent social networks very well. But Trump and Twitter, it was a particularly powerful, toxic combination.
Well, I think Twitter is a unique kind of network in that it brings together a social network and a broadcast network. You have millions of followers, you're effectively a broadcaster. And these two modes interact. Sometimes a tweet goes, viral, where eventually millions or tens of millions of people will see that one message.
It was his understanding of Twitter and how to make that entire platform his in a way that creates direct intimacy with his supporters. It was unbelievable what he was doing. And I recognized that immediately. I was like sitting there going like, almost reverential, like, oh my gosh.
It was Mr. Trump himself who drove that social media platform train by directly communicating with the people. And the media had to cover the candidates' tweets.
Matt, I want to put up that tweet again this morning, of course, tweeting, "I love Hispanics."
I want you to look at this graphic of one of his tweets. I'm sure that you have seen this. A star that is the shape of the Star of David.
Donald Trump very successfully used not only Twitter as a tool in and of itself, but Twitter as a tool to disrupt legacy media.
I would be on a live TV set and I'd be mid-sentence and be like, hold on, Kellyanne, breaking news. And I'd say, oh, God forbid, what happened? And they'd say, your boss, your candidate just tweeted the following. And I'd look at it and they'd ask me to comment on it. But he literally would make news instantaneously.
And maybe a lot of that innermost decision-making and kind of tuning of messaging was happening by the man himself. And in the speed and the agility that you need to surf a near real-time medium, which is what Twitter is, that might be a huge strategic advantage.
I just can't think of a worse candidate in the Twitter era. I mean, Hillary isn't like a bite-sized, candidate who would just fire off things without thinking about them. And, to her credit, a lot of people would like a president who puts a lot of thought into things before they, release them to the world. There would be, a whole team to approve a simple tweet. Ultimately, that, I think that people saw that and could tell kind of a lack of spontaneity or genuine emotion,
I am honored to be here amongst you on behalf of what really made this country great, working people, men and women.
The new currency that's rare and needed in politics is no longer money. It's attention. It's name recognition. That is the new currency. And Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump had oodles of that. The difference is how they used it. Hillary Clinton tried to stay out of the spotlight, away from interviews, and just rest on the fact that she had the biggest brand in American politics.
Yeah, just wait. Yeah, maybe when I finish talking to the people here. How's that?
She tried to walk in a parade to cordon off the press. They were put in this moving rope line.
This is the worst visual metaphor. Before you could say she's not talking to reporters, but you can't cover not talking. You can show this image over and over again, and it's awful.
Her press strategy was essentially to ignore us. She, felt like the front runner and didn't think that she necessarily needed to talk to the gaggle of reporters who traveled with her everywhere, covering her every move.
I am so happy to have all of you with me. Have you missed us? I've been just waiting for this moment.
The relationship between the Clinton campaign
in the press is just hostile on both sides, and it's early for that.
She gave very few interviews. She did almost no print interviews that I'm aware of before the general election.
The criticism is directed at the Clinton campaign on this. We're
Yes.
trying to wrap her in bubble wrap this entire campaign and not let her actually associate with real people. That's where the
Nobody wanted any kind of moment to go wrong and go viral and look bad. And so I think there was an extreme caution that kind of prohibited her from having more of those moments that could have ultimately helped her.
We saw a systematic difference between members of the what we call Trump tribe and Clinton tribe. Just more retweets, more tweets, more replies, more activity per account from the Trump tribe versus the Clinton tribe. And so we described that as a passion gap. And at some point, someone on our team said, it's almost like there's a public awakening. Like we're seeing something happening in the nature of the conversation where Donald Trump seems like a far more serious possibility than, the polling numbers or anything else would indicate.
I think the key is that Donald Trump's defiant authenticity resonated, and that's something I think all politicians can learn from. That doesn't mean simply, play to the lowest common denominator every day, but it does mean, for God's sakes, be yourself and talk like a goddamn human being.
What's something that you always carry with you? Hot sauce.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you getting information right now? Hot sauce. Hot sauce in my bag, swag?
Hot sauce.
Really?
Yes.
Now listen, I just want you to know, people are going to see this and say, okay, she's pandering to black people.
Okay. Is it working?
Don't forget what a terrible campaign Hillary Clinton ran. Her campaign, to this day, nobody can remember a thing about it.
Quick sound check. What was written on Donald Trump's baseball cap?
Make America great again.
Make America great again.
Make America great again.
Oh, Make America Great Again?
What was Hillary's campaign slogan?
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Ready for Hillary? I don't know.
I don't remember.
Together? Forward together?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't actually know what it said on her plane. What was her slogan?
And she had stronger together, whatever that means.
On one point, being this well known made it hard for her campaign to craft a narrative, but it also made it just hard for Hillary. I mean, she's lived in this cloistered, rarefied world for a very long time, and so to emerge from that world and try to really connect to voters suffering in these steel towns where Trumpism took hold, I think was very difficult. And this sounds so old school, but we wouldn't see any Hillary yard signs. You saw a ton of Trump yard signs.
I never got the sense that they had really captured the energy of people out there, connected with them in that way. Often you get a sense that a candidate will fight for every inch, and she just never exuded that.
It was all bullshit. It was all sloganeering.
I'm just chilling in Cedar Rapids. I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I think just viscerally, she missed the anger that had taken root in the electorate.
Secretary Clinton does represent the establishment. I represent, I hope, ordinary Americans, and by the way, who are not all that enamored with the establishment.
It's always been the case, going back to 2008 even, that Hillary Clinton just wasn't an inspirational figure. Whether it was her speaking ability, whether it was her record, whether it was the way she saw the world, it was an issue that her campaign was in complete denial about. They thought it was Bernie who convinced a lot of left-leaning people not to like Hillary, but in fact, this was just a fact that Sanders and his campaign saw and exploited. It was a pre-existing condition for Hillary that people just didn't really like her.
We have won, at this point, 45% of pledged delegates, but we have only earned 7% of super delegates. So in other words, the way the system works is you have establishment candidates who win virtually all of the superdelegates.
NBC News is now declaring Hillary Clinton the presumptive Democratic nominee.
At the Democratic Convention, I went down to the protests, the Bernie or Bust protests. Kids from all over the country, people in their teens and 20s who said, the Democratic Party has lost me for a generation. I don't have something to believe in if Bernie's not on top of the ticket.
Many Sanders backers just aren't willing to shift their loyalties from the U.S. Senator's progressive platform.
I mean, that was a tense convention.
Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine want to build an economy that works for everyone, not just the people at the top.
If I didn't know any better, I would have thought I was at Bernie Sanders' convention last night.
Yeah.
The rafters.
There was a sense that the DNC had kind of tilted the table in her favor. There hadn't really been a fair contest between Hillary and Bernie.
I mean, there's no question to my mind, and I think no question to any objective observer's mind, that the DNC was supporting Hillary Clinton, was in opposition to our campaign.
Rigged. Remember hashtag rigged? How offensive to say it was rigged. How dare you say that our democracy could be rigged? How dare you say that? And it was rigged.
I actually think Hillary and some of her top advisors are more angry at Bernie Sanders than they are Donald Trump. You know, they thought that he gave her sort of a lukewarm endorsement when he finally got around to it.
And I move that Hillary Clinton be selected as the nominee of the Democratic Party for President of the United States.
Senator Sanders has moved in the spirit of unity to suspend the rules.
Bernie Sanders lit the place on fire. I mean, he came out of nowhere, and God bless him. Bernie was an independent. He agreed to run in Democratic primaries, but he was an independent. Then of course there are going to be associations and friendships and loyalty built up to someone who's been a Democrat their whole life.
That's why you're an insurgent. You're an insurgent because there's a status quo establishment in the party and there's an establishment candidate.
And so, my friends, it is with humility, determination, and boundless confidence in America's promise that I accept your nomination for President of the United States.
But I do think that she matched up with the mood of the electorate particularly badly. A lot of people felt the system was rigged, and the Clintons, for many people unfairly, were a symbol of a rigged system.
And so you put all that together, you have a real big problem for Hillary Clinton going into that election with a divided party and an arrogant campaign that believed it could not be defeated.
Even Trump may have underestimated Trump. I knew he wanted to be the great disruptor who would attract more eyeballs and create this reality show. I knew he wanted to do that. That was clear. But did he want to stay the whole way and make it into a general election? Because if he did, he was going to be there.
Friends, delegates, and fellow Americans, I humbly and gratefully accept your nomination for the presidency of the United States.
I suspect that Donald Trump did not decide he really wanted to be president until he turned to face Hillary Clinton.
This is the legacy of Hillary Clinton: death, destruction, terrorism, and weakness.
It was going to be one of the more negative campaigns in the history of the country. Why? Because I might be able to get you to stay home instead of voting for Hillary Clinton.
Hillary Clinton was a perfect foil for him. She embodied, or could be made to embody, everything that he said he was against. So, and some of this was just Trump's gut. And some of this is Steve Bannon and Kellyanne Conway and others building an actual coherent worldview around Trump's gut.
I always knew Hillary Clinton could lose the election, which is one way of answering the question of when I thought Donald Trump could win the election.
Down the stretch they come. We've been talking about Hillary Clinton opening up that lead.
He struggles with women. He struggles with minorities.
Mr. Trump with the support of 2% of African-American voters.
By the time I came on board, we were down in the polls. I said, you know, we're way behind. The window's closing, but it's still open. We're way behind. And he said, oh, the polls. And I said, I've looked at the polls, and she's winning, but she doesn't have to. You can.
She had a lot more paths to victory than he did.
He can win Florida, he can win North Carolina, and he can win Ohio and still be short. That's important. He can win Arizona and still be short. He can win Utah.
And then, even then, he's got to go and get, maybe it's a Michigan or a Wisconsin to put him over the top.
A normal Republican cannot think in terms, frankly, I hate to say this, cannot think in terms of bringing in Michigan.
He represented a great push forward in our demonstrable quest to bust through Hillary Clinton's very real blue wall, beginning with the upper Midwest. So Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Ohio, Pennsylvania.
They've taken our jobs out of Pennsylvania. We're going to be bringing them back, folks, believe me. We're bringing them back.
This is industrial. This is blue collar. There are a lot of towns that have been hurt by globalization.
We talked a lot about the white working class vote, particularly white working class men in those Rust Belt states. Hillary is notably weak with these voters, losing them by as much as 2-1 or more, 10 to 15 points weaker than Barack Obama with white working class men.
We were competing in states that Obama-Biden had carried twice, but had also elected a Republican statewide as senator and/or governor in the interim, and where Hillary Clinton had never gotten to 50% and stayed there for very long.
Hillary Clinton just didn't go to these states. She was hanging out in places like Arizona and Texas, inexplicably.
When your allies are putting a lot of effort into red states right now, Arizona, Utah, Georgia, Missouri, you're doing this even though it's still neck and neck in a lot of the traditional battleground states, Ohio and Iowa, Florida. Are you guys getting overconfident?
There's a special opportunity that popped up late in Arizona. It is possible to win it.
Arizona has not, in 12 of the past 13 presidential elections, has not voted for a Democrat. And so you saw this extreme confidence on the part of the campaign that they could expand the map, that they could bring in new voters in places like Arizona and Georgia that are sort of going purple.
While Donald Trump is up in these states saying, I'm gonna make America great again.
In August, after she had a 10-point lead after her convention, after a successful convention, she basically disappeared in the Hamptons to fundraise. Her campaign would get very defensive about this. We need money, we need, a lot of money to go against Trump, but every single day Trump was doing rallies. Then she reemerged Labor Day, and she was sick, and she just had sort of a string of bad luck.
I think that was a very troubling moment for her. That was her worst weekend in many ways. September 11th, very early in the morning, she had her spill.
She's supposed to fight all of these different things, and she can't make it 15 feet to her car. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Thank God she was okay health-wise, but the worst thing for her was 2 days earlier when she was caught on tape.
To just be grossly generalistic, you could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
Hillary Clinton on Friday evening, basket of deplorables already entered into the annals of campaign flubs.
They are not a basket of anything. They are Americans, and they deserve your respect.
People like you, and you. Deplorable. You know what's deplorable? Hillary Clinton viciously demonizing hard-working people like you.
And is a reflection perfectly of what the coastal elites in the United States feel about the people trapped in the working class counties and cities of the country that have been decimated by globalization.
And Red's like, wow, we thought you thought that of us. And now we know for sure.
She is a really gifted debater, maybe one of the best debaters we've seen on a stage in a long time.
Why won't he release his tax returns? And I think there may be a couple of reasons. First, maybe he's not as rich as he says he is. Second, maybe he's not as charitable as he claims to be.
We're going to come up with 3 or 4 clever things that we're going to hit Trump with tonight, and you'll say them in the following sequence.
I call it trumped up trickle down, because that's exactly what it would be.
She was picking out her outfit to look perfect. He's showing up with the tie down to his ankle. Give me the microphone, I'm ready to go.
I don't believe that Hillary has the stamina.
Let's let her respond.
Woo, okay.
He stood there waiting to be exposed.
As soon as he travels to 112 countries and negotiates a peace deal, a ceasefire, or even spends 11 hours testifying in front of a congressional committee, he can talk to me about stamina.
But Hillary invested a lot. Instead of doing rallies that, 20,000 people on an amazing night would see, how about we just bunker down and invest in these debates?
And I just left Detroit, and I just left Philadelphia, and you've seen me, I've been all over the place. You decided to stay home, and that's okay.
I think Donald just criticized me for preparing for this debate. And yes, I did. And you know what else I prepared for? I prepared to be president, and I think that's a good thing.
I think, the consensus was that she won all of them.
Did anybody see that debate last night? Oh, yes. 1 down, 2 to go.
I want a word or phrase to describe Donald Trump's performance tonight.
Strong start, weak finish.
Missed opportunities.
Bombastic.
Not presidential.
Sloppy. I want a word or phrase to describe Hillary Clinton's performance.
Prepared.
Firm.
Powerful.
I think she had one of the best debate preps that I have seen in the last 25 years.
I think she came across more presidential.
It seemed for all the world like something of a victory lap.
Yeah, and I think Hillary Clinton deserves a victory lap this morning.
One history professor, meanwhile, says that Donald Trump will be the next leader of our country. Professor Alan Lichtman from American University, good enough to join us now.
I delivered my Trump prediction in a Washington Post interview in September 2016, and people wondered if I'd gotten too old and lost my sanity. My system forgets the pundits, forgets the polls, does not look at the day-to-day events of the campaign. I don't look at debates. I don't look at ads. I don't look at campaign tricks. And I predict elections in advance. In other words, I put myself on the line and have been doing so successfully since 1984. And for 32 years, everyone has asked me the same question. Couldn't there be an October surprise? Couldn't there be something so extraordinary, that it could turn around your prediction? And there never has been an October surprise that's doomed a candidate. Everybody talks about it, but it's never happened.
It's like a magnet. You just, I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab him by the pussy. You can do anything.
My assumption from the bus is that he was done.
A recording of Donald Trump made more than a decade ago has surfaced. It is lewd, it is vulgar, and we caution you, you won't want young children to hear it.
Every single Republican is going to have to answer the question, what did you do the day you saw the tape of this man boasting about grabbing a woman's pussy? Period.
Okay. All right.
Will you please stop saying that word? My daughter is listening.
Yeah,
and
you know
we're
what,
not
Scotty? You know what, Scotty? Don't tell me you're offended when I say pussy. pussy, but you're not offended when Donald Trump says
Exactly.
What was your response when you first heard it?
Horrible remarks. They're remarks you certainly don't want to hear from anyone, much less a presidential candidate.
This was a powerful individual speaking freely and openly about sexually predatory behavior.
I saw it and I said, the election's over. There's no way you come back from this. Folks are going to stay home.
This race is over. Tomorrow morning, the money will dry up. The Republicans will start to hide.
One top Republican said to me, we're going to see the fastest cut and run in American political history.
I'm not sure the Republican Party is going to survive.
Yeah. The fundraisers, the donors, they're all walking away.
I'm out. I can no longer endorse Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump should step aside, which I've been asked many times today. Yes, I do.
I passed a TV that literally said Trump's female campaign manager expected to quit. You know, she's got 4 young children. She's a devout Catholic. There's no way she can stay.
How she stood up there and defended him when nobody else is willing to do so.
This is suggesting sexual assault. And
that's a very unfortunate phrase, and people really should stop using that.
Why?
Because I know him better and I know better.
But it's what he said.
He did not say the word sexual assault.
And I remember watching and thinking, A, that's a very courageous thing for a woman to be doing. Secondly, it was really helping him. It managed to take the sting out of the tail.
Nobody was saying, oh, it's nothing.
This was locker room banter, a private conversation that took place many years ago.
Mr. Trump apologized for it. He spoke about it.
I've never said I'm a perfect person, nor pretended to be someone that I'm not. I've said some foolish things, but there's a big difference between the words and actions of other people. Bill Clinton has actually abused women.
And I felt it was really important for us to talk about what he would do for you as president, transport you away from this moment and into his presidency and the promises he was making. And I did famously say there's a big difference to voters and indeed all Americans between what offends you and what affects you. And voters were making that choice.
All men do it and women do it. Honestly, you gotta stick with them. Hillary's no better. I mean, she's just lying through her teeth left and right over and over again.
Here's the thing, he's not running to be the Pope. Look at the culture of our country.
I don't care. Nobody cares. Hillary Clinton said that the women who make allegations deserve to be heard, except the ones who accuse her husband.
But remember, October 7th this happens. October 8th, we have a meeting in Trump Tower. He knew people were going to have some tough recommendations. Reince Priebus told him to drop out or stay in and lose by the most in history. But as is Donald J. Trump's custom, he did it his way. There was no time for him to be inauthentic and phony. And so I think people saw that, and they probably thought he would fold in the next debate, but it almost reinvigorated him. And then, of course, you know, the Clinton accusers were there as well.
There you see in the middle of your screen Donald Trump, but from left to right, Kathleen Willey, Juanita Broaddrick, then Donald Trump in the middle. These are women who have made very strong accusations against Bill Clinton.
It was several people's idea, and it was an idea that had been floated for a while, though. Hillary Clinton and really Mark Cuban made a big deal that he was going to go sit in the front row and torment Donald Trump, and so I was like, well, we'll see you one Mark Cuban and we'll raise you 4 or 5 Clinton accusers. See how much fun I had?
What he's basically saying is, hey, go fuck yourself. I'm not going to be attacked by you, who's now all of a sudden the champion of women.
If you look at Bill Clinton, far worse, minor words, and his was action.
What he basically says is, look, you know, it's the both sides are guilty kind of, let's muddy the contrast here. Even though Hillary Clinton is in some ways the victim, obviously, of her husband's infidelity.
So you can say any way you want to say it, but Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women and attacked them viciously. 4 of them are here tonight.
He gave the right wing something to hold on to. And they really, you know, the only thing uniting the Republican coalition isn't Donald Trump, it's hatred of Hillary Clinton.
Premiums have gotten too high, co-pays, deductibles.
And he does have a way, and this is what many people right of center in this country like about him.
of not letting Democrats off the hook for their bad behavior.
I'd like to know, Anderson, why aren't you bringing up the emails? I'd like to know. Why aren't you getting
brought up
to the
the
bottom?
emails.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. And it hasn't been finished at all.
Trump had a lot of luck in that the FBI was very vocal about their investigation into Hillary's private server.
There is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information.
Questions over a classified email account.
Emails. In one form or another, they have been dogging Clinton throughout this campaign.
2 years after she had left office, for it to become clear that she had been using this private email and that she had handed over 30,000 emails and that 31,000, almost 32,000 had been deleted in this process.
She deleted the emails. She has to go to jail.
His narrative of crooked Hillary, he had this giant data point of this looming FBI investigation.
I didn't think I'd say this, but I'm going to say it. And I hate to say it. But if I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
The fact that he was willing to say to her face on national television, "You belong in jail," is exactly what voters wanted to hear from him, to know that he was serious.
We're going to beat her on November 8th. That's better. We're going to beat her on November 8th.
3 weeks isn't typically too early for, the October surprise. But with our current short attention spans, courtesy of social media, Twitter, and other things, 3 weeks actually, I think, was too early. Instead, there was time for the Comey letter to come out and resuscitate all those concerns about Hillary Clinton.
They're reopening the investigation into crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked Hillary. She's crooked. She is a crooked one.
A new possible investigation by the FBI into Hillary Clinton's emails.
Just 11 days before the election, the announcement creating shockwaves. The FBI reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email use.
We are 11 days out from perhaps the most important national election of our lifetimes. So the American people deserve to get the full and complete facts immediately.
The FBI situation significantly hurt Hillary Clinton.
Their outrage today certainly suggests that they are nervous about this. They are furious that this came 11 days before Election Day.
Donald Trump, meanwhile, and his team clearly reveling in this latest plot twist.
The FBI, after discovering new email.
The news this morning is this is bigger than Watergate. This is bigger.
And if you look at the trend line, Hillary had peaked shortly after the 3 debates, which she was thought to have won by most observers, and then there was a gradual tightening all the way up until Election Day, and the Comey letter in the waning days of the campaign accelerated that. The question, though, that a lot of Democrats had, why was she ever in a position where that could have been decisive? To most people's minds, to most of the conventional political classes thinking, this is someone she should have been beating by 20 points. This was a bigger issue that she had. It was a bigger issue that she was never able to put Trump away.
1-0, contact departures 126.55. Have a nice flight, and thanks for making ATC great again.
Tonight, Donald Trump with one last battleground blitz, a whirlwind sprint to the finish, 8 states in 24 hours.
Part of it was the reality of budget. We were understaffed and under-resourced financially and had to become creative.
You have one day to make every dream you ever dreamed for your country come true. Real change also means restoring honesty to government. First thing you should do is get rid of Clinton.
But our 2 greatest assets all through the campaign were Donald J. Trump and Michael R. Pence. And they were willing to go anywhere, and they were willing to go to many stops a day those last 4 weeks. They were doing 5, 6, 7 stops a day each.
This is the last day of our campaign. Who would have believed it? They say it's the single greatest movement, politically speaking, in the history of this country. Can you believe that? Can you believe that?
Kellyanne, yes, we do see the lines, we see the rallies, we see all the people, but will they vote? No, they waited in line in the tent for 2 days in the rain just to have a seat in a 20,000 person arena, but they're not going to show up on election day.
So it's now officially Tuesday, November 8th. Did you ever think you'd be hearing a major speech like at around close to 1 o'clock in the morning? Are we crazy? And we don't need Jay-Z or Beyonce. We don't need John Bon Jovi. We don't need Lady Gaga. All we need is great ideas to make America great again. That's all we need. That's all we need.
Hillary's closing message was very much about Trump's unfitness for the presidency. She thought she could sway a lot of Republican-leaning, suburban, white, college-educated women by pointing out how offensive Trump was to so many people.
There is a clear choice in this election. A choice between division or unity, between strong, steady leadership or a loose cannon who could put everything at risk. Because none of us want to wake up on Wednesday morning and wish we had done more.
I think we can all agree it's been a long campaign. But tomorrow, you get to pick our next president.
Her campaign is not cocky, but confident. They believe that victory is well within their grasp. She is holding her election night watch party in an atrium that is conveniently and symbolically equipped, Gail, with a glass ceiling.
We have the presidency at about 89% for Hillary Clinton.
I'm calling Hillary Clinton the winner of this presidential election.
The presidential race is over.
Let's make history together. I'm Hillary Clinton, and one last time, I approve this message.
The day before the election, I got a call off the record from senior members of the campaign who were affiliated with the RNC. And they were calling a bunch of editors-in-chief, and they're saying, look, we're going to lose tomorrow, but we want you to know it's not our fault. We've got the greatest data operation in human history. I said, okay, well, how bad do you think it's going to be? You think you're going to feel? You think you're going to keep the Senate? Long beat, and the operative replied, we feel good about the House.
State of Illinois, New Jersey, in Massachusetts, another 11 electoral votes. Maryland carries the state of Rhode Island, Delaware.
Donald Trump has won the state of Ohio. No Republican has ever won the White House without winning Ohio.
And we are about to make a major call. Donald Trump has won the state of North Carolina. This is exactly what he needed to do.
Anderson, this night is turning out to be a real nail-biter. CNN projects Donald Trump will carry the state of Florida.
I wouldn't call anything encouraging for Hillary Clinton at the moment, to be honest with you, my friend.
He will win Wisconsin with its 10 electoral votes. He's cracked the so-called blue wall that Hillary Clinton had tried to create.
Donald Trump has won the state of Pennsylvania.
That is the race, frankly. There is no path forward for Hillary Clinton.
Everybody should head home. You should get some sleep.
Hillary Clinton has called Donald Trump to concede the race.
Donald Trump wins the presidency.
What happened here is the more competent and qualified candidate, Secretary Clinton, got 3 million more votes across the country than Donald Trump got.
Look, I don't think you can't argue that much with the Clinton sales pitch. I mean, you could argue it could have been better, but in the end, they won the popular vote. This wasn't a race that they lost because they didn't have a message that could win enough votes.
And it wasn't like a nail biter. I mean, he lost by 3 million votes. That is a larger number than Nixon beat Humphrey. It's a larger number than Kennedy beat Nixon. That is a significant victory for Hillary.
Well, hold on a second. That's not the race. The race is to zig and zag through the country and beat the person in the Electoral College, and he did that. And he beat her in places where Republicans typically don't win.
They took Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania and places like that for granted, that they were going to win them without having to do a whole lot, without having to put a big get-out-the-vote effort on the ground.
She refused to spend any money for grassroots turnout in Michigan, in Indiana, in Pennsylvania, because her data dummy, Pollsters, told her she had it in the bag based on polling.
There is going to be an incredible, long, deep, rigorous autopsy done on the polling that pervaded this campaign.
It's horrific.
Public polling and the Clinton campaign's own data, which obviously was wrong in a lot of ways.
The big falsehood was that her ground game was good. It actually wasn't. And she never went to Wisconsin, which is something we all should have noticed in retrospect.
I think a big swing in Wisconsin was Hillary never coming here. I think she just assumed that Wisconsin was going to go her way, and that didn't work out too well for her.
This is a state that Hillary Clinton hasn't even visited since the Democratic convention over the summer.
Wisconsin's always tight, and what happens in the end is Democrats always win. But that was before Governor Walker had instituted a series of reforms that made the unions less powerful.
President Obama would have gone to Wisconsin. He by all kinds of reports, he wanted to go to Wisconsin, but the campaign told him and his people that there's no reason to go there.
Do you think it would have made a difference if she'd come on your show?
Hillary?
Yes.
I do. It's 70,000 votes, and in those states I am popular, particularly Pennsylvania, for example.
If you don't catch the signal that you've got a big problem in industrial heartland when you can't win your own primary in Michigan, if you can't respond to that on the ground when people are begging for help, you're gonna get beat. At the end of the day, it is a ground operation that was not funded in the heartland that cost his campaign. It was political malpractice of the highest order. Donald Trump saw that hole in her plan, and he went to the heartland, and he beat her there. It's her fault.
Our campaign was never about one person or even one election. It was about the country we love and about building an America that's hopeful, inclusive, and big-hearted.
At some point, we, the voters, we have to take responsibility for this. And yes, it's been true for a while, not just in 2016, but it's been true for a while that, and you put it very well, that voters are being treated like an audience. And as long as we keep responding as an audience, that's how they're gonna try to win elections. The moment we, the voters, insist on a higher level of debate, that's when we'll get one.
Clearly, we have missed something on the polling side.
How did polling get this so wrong?
A lot of his people were not willing to say to a pollster they were going to vote for him.
Are they not talking to us? Are they not interested in doing surveys?
That term, hidden Trump voter, undercover Trump voter, was met with international derision and ridicule. Thank you, everyone. And they said, oh, on election day, they'll still be hidden. Well, That was to explain, not that people were embarrassed to say they're voting for Donald Trump, but they weren't supposed to be. They're women who are supposed to vote for the first woman president of the United States. They're Hispanic who are supposed to not like his immigration policy. They're young who are supposed to say, the Democrats are woke. If you are a union worker in any of these states we were talking about earlier, how in the world can you vote for Donald Trump? And so they just don't want to argue with people in their circle of life, their family, their friends, or their colleagues anymore. But they came out for him.
I think the idea that it's only the dumb people who would fall for Trump doesn't stand up to science, because there are plenty of brilliant Republicans who are pro-Trump.
A lot of rich guys voted for him too, in case you didn't know. They closed the curtain. They said, okay, can't tell anybody, Trump. And then they opened the curtain.
He tapped into a lot of frustration, and people who at the last minute just said, fuck it, let's take a risk.
There was this divided, fragmented nation, and really an understanding gap that we didn't even have a sense of what was necessarily going on the other side of the communication divide. And within that I would include a lot of our journalists.
Now, obviously, we missed it, right? I mean, but a lot of people missed it, too.
Everybody missed it. Just about everybody missed it.
I don't think that the mainstream media was lying about what was going to happen. I think we missed the overarching story to a large extent.
And see so many in the American media today, in the last, I'd say, 72 hours, having this self-reflection and telling themselves they need to look in the mirror, that this was not a shock to millions of Americans, but it was a shock in the newsrooms at the Washington Post, at the New York Times, at CNN.
I actually believe that what we watched happen in the 2016 election was an example of this very new set of affordances, if you will, of the media system. The gatekeepers of the old media system no longer are the gatekeepers. Once upon a time, we had audience members who were each sitting in their own living rooms watching this television broadcast and maybe shouting back at the TV. That landscape has completely changed, because now we have audience members who are all on the internet, all on different social media platforms, connected with one another and talking with each other about new political possibilities. When we're now connected to more of our friends, and we have the ability to self-select and tune into networks of people who think like we do.
Facebook is admitting Russia agents bought thousands of ads during the election. Now the social media giant says it will turn over those ads to Congress.
And now you throw this into the mix, where it really sort of raises questions again about the legitimacy of his election.
The clear evidence that Russia tried to influence the outcome of the election is unprecedented. And they were clearly trying to sow the seeds of confusion and discord, play to identity politics, but they had a favored candidate. That's not in question.
I do not believe in a giant global conspiracy whereby the Trump campaign, which literally didn't even know it was winning at like 8 o'clock that night, orchestrated this in order to beat Hillary Clinton.
But what I definitely think happened is that the Russians were interfering as much as they could do in the mindsets of American people. Through Facebook, through WikiLeaks, through all sorts of stuff. The Russians were everywhere trying to create noise around probably Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. Was Donald Trump responsible for that activity? No. Did he mind it? I doubt it. You know, all's fair in love and election war. But is the central charge true that Donald Trump was only there because of Russian interference? I just don't buy that at all.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President-elect of the United States, Donald John Trump.
I think America always gets the president it deserves. You know, this is an age distorted by greed, distorted by inequality, distorted by social media. Why wouldn't we be offered the chance to elect a president whose main skill is self-promotion? That makes him the ultimate American.
A guy like Trump was inevitable. You're calling it the accidental presidency. It may be an accident that Trump is the president, but it is not an accident that someone well-known outside of politics would suddenly rise.
We can no longer assume that what we have known for the last 50 years has any relevance or resonance. We can't tell that anymore because the public has changed. Politics has changed.
You can't go back now. You can't have boring robotic leaders anymore. You know, the rise of populism around the world, driven a lot by people like Donald Trump, is because people have had a reaction, I think, to robotic politics. And I think in America, Trump tapped into the same sentiment about Washington and said that Washington is broken, it's paralyzed, it's not working.
He offered, as the demagogue does, easy answers to complex questions. We live in this era where we're being disrupted by globalization, by technology revolution, by automation. How does Donald Trump win? How does he not win?
We're still talking about the 2016 election because it's still the case that no one has wrapped their head around it. And the president is no exception. He won't shut up about the 2016 election either. We're still trying to figure out what the heck happened and whether it's a fluke. To me, that's why we keep covering politics, because we don't know. What I'm trying to figure out, what I'm trying to cover is, has our political framework changed? Has it been destroyed? Has Trump realigned the way that the American electorate works? Or was it just a really weird fluke that took advantage of, you know, the imbalance between the popular vote and the Electoral College, the Russians, Jim Comey, a fractured Republican field, a divided Republican Party? Was there just this really specific set of circumstances that allowed something really unusual to happen?
We're going to face many challenges, but this is truly an exciting time to be alive. The script is not yet written. We do not know what the page will read tomorrow. But for the first time in a long, long time, what we do know is that the pages will be authored by each and every one of you and you.